नमस्ते एवरीवन, बोलिए सत्य सनातन वैदिक धर्म की जय। कैसे हैं आप सब लोग? कैसा चल रहा है सब? आई होप आप अपने पड़ोसियों पे ध्यान दे रहे हैं। आई होप आप अपने देश के पड़ोसियों पे भी ध्यान लगाए बैठे हैं। नेपाल में एट द टाइम व्हेन आई एम रिकॉर्डिंग देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ इंस्टेबिलिटी एंड it is said that the same thing might be repeated in India. अनुमान है, कयास है, देखते हैं। अब हम न्याय वैशेषिका फिलॉसफी को दोबारा कंटिन्यू करते हैं, where we were talking about किन चीज़ों को they were referring as inferences. Inferences जब हमने पहले पढ़े थे, that we had explained. काफ़ी बड़ा टॉपिक था इन्फरेंस का। अब हम उपमाना एंड शब्द के बेसिस पे हम आगे कंटिन्यू करते हैं, राइट? The third pramana, which is admitted by Nyaya and not by Vaisesika, is upamana and consists in associating a thing unknown before with its name by virtue of its similarity with some other thing. Thus, a man of a city who has never seen a wild ox, gavaya, goes to the forest, asks the forester, "What is gavaya?" And the forester replies, "Oh, you do not know it. It is just like a cow." After hearing from this, the forester he travels on and he sees a gavaya and find it similar to the cow. He forms the opinion that this is gavaya. This knowingly and hitherto unknown thing, by virtue of its similarity to the known thing, is called upamana. यानी कि अगर आप किसी एक चीज को किसी के समान बोलते हैं, दैट इज उपमाना। सेम चीज पॉकेट मंकीज के साथ भी होती है। जब कहते हैं कि अगर मुझे पॉकेट मंकी नहीं पता था, तो वो छोटा साइज होता है मंकी का, एंड वो कहते हैं कि जो मंकी हो और जो छोटा साइज का हो, दैट इज पॉकेट मंकी, राइट? This knowing and hitherto unknown thing, by virtue of its similarity, is to be known thing is called upamana. If some forester had pointed out a gavaya to a man of the city and had told him that it was called a gavaya, then also man would have known that animal by the name of gavaya. But then this would have been due to testimony, शब्द प्रमाण। जब आप अभी उपमाना में आपने सिमिलैरिटी के बेसिस पे डिफरेंशिएट किया या आइडेंटिफाई किया, लेकिन शब्द प्रमाण में आप डायरेक्टली बोल रहे हो दैट दिस इज गवाया। लाइक जैसे अभी आईफोन 17 लॉन्च हुआ, तो मैं कहूँगा जो फ़ोन कलर में थोड़ा डिफरेंट हो और आईफोन 16 की तरह दिखता हो, वो आईफोन 17 है, दैट इज उपमाना। लेकिन अगर मैं वो पॉइंट आउट करके बोलूँ ओके दिस इज आईफोन 17, तो ये शब्द प्रमाणा माना जाता है। The knowledge is said to be generated by the upamana process when the association of the unknown animal with its name is made by the observer on the strength of the experience of the similarity of the unknown animal to a known one. The Nayakas are thorough realists, and as such they do not regard the observation of similarity as being due to any subjective process of mind. Similarity is indeed perceived by visual sense, but yet the association of the name is in accordance to the perception of similarity, and the instruction received is a separate act and is called upamana. Nyayakas never believed कि इसके जैसा होगा. Nyayakas always believed कि इसके जैसा है, plus also the शब्द कि उसको ऐसा बोला गया है, क्योंकि आपने भगवान की इमेजेस फिर कैसे बनाई? जैसे इन अ सेंस भगवान को टेक्निकली किसी ने इस धरती पे तो नहीं देखा है। जो देखता है वो बनाने का उसके पास टाइम नहीं होता। मैं ये नहीं कह रहा किसी ने नहीं देखा, जिन्होंने भगवान को देखा है साक्षात रूप में, उनके पास बनाने का तो टाइम नहीं है। तो स्क्रिप्चर्स में जैसे जैसे एक डिफाइन किया गया है भगवान को कि कौन से शस्त्रधारी हैं, कौन सा शस्त्र लेते हैं, एंड जैसे मैं हाउ आई अंडरस्टैंड इज कि भगवान जब भी धरती पे आते हैं तो वो या तो समूह विनाश करने आते हैं या रिक्रिएट या फिर पूरी जनसंख्या को बढ़ाने आते हैं, राइट। तो वो किसी एम से आते हैं, राइट। तो जब वो आते हैं इन दिस ऑन दिस अर्थ, देन डेफिनेटली देयर इज अ वेपन विच ही ब्रिंग्स। तो कई बार मैं देखता हूँ कि गणेश चतुर्थी में बड़े क्यूट से गणेश जी, अरे गणेश जी क्यूट थे भी और नहीं, वो जब धरती पे आए थे तो वो विकराल रूप में आए थे। Shabda Pramana or testimony is the right knowledge which we derive from utterance of infallible and absolute truthful persons. All knowledge derived from the Vedas is valid, for the Vedas are worded by Ishvara himself. The Vedas give us right knowledge, not of itself, but because they come out of the utterance of the infallible Ishvara. The Vaisesika did not admit Shabda as a separate pramana, but they sought to establish validity of testimony Shabda on the strength of inference Anumiti, on the ground of its being the utterance of an infallible person. But as I have said before, the explanation is hardly corroborated by the Visheshika Sutras, which tacitly admit the validity of the scriptures on its own authority. But anyhow, this was how Visheshika was interpreted in the later times. देखिए होता क्या है, पहले आप शब्द को एज अ वर्ड ऑफ इट ले लेते हैं. You identified something, someone said it, and you accepted it. But later on, who should say it? Who is the authority to say that? Vedas were the authority in themselves, but for the human, it will be doubtful because he might lie as well. तो इसीलिए उन्होंने बोला हुआ है कि utterance of infallible person, यानी कि कोई सिद्ध पुरुष है, धर्मात्मा है, and he is actually got mukti. तो इन जो हमारे साधु संत पीठ पे जितने बैठे होते हैं, ज्ञान पीठ पे जो बैठे होते हैं, ये उनके बारे में बात हो रही है, राइट. नेगेशन इन न्याय वैशेषिका. The problem of negation or non-existence abhava is of great interest in Indian philosophy. In this section, we can describe its nature only from the point of view of perceptibility. न्याय मंजरी ऑन उपमाना, न्याय मंजरी के एग्जाम्पल से उपमाना लिया गया है. द ओल्डेस्ट न्याय व्यू was that the instruction given by the forester, by virtue of which the association of the name wild ox to the strange animal was possible, was itself upamana. When Prashastapada held that upamana should be treated as a case of testimony, aptavachana, he had probably this interpretation in view, but Udyotkara and Vachaspati hold that it was not only by instruction alone of the forester that the association of the name wild ox was made, but there was the perception of similarity and the memory of the instruction of the forester too. So it is the perception of similarity with the other two factors as accessories that lead us to this association called upamana. What Vatsayana meant is not very clear, but Dinnaga supposes that according to him the result of Upamana was the knowledge of similarity of the knowledge of a thing having similarity. Vachaspati, of course, holds that he has correctly interpreted Vatsayana's intention. He is, however, definite that Upamana means the association of a name to a new object. Jayanta points out that it is the perception of similarity which directly leads to the association of the name, and hence the instruction of the forester cannot be regarded as the direct pause, and consequently it cannot be classified under testimony or shabda. Right. Okay. Kumarila, Kumarila's treatment of Bhava in श्लोक वर्तिका, इसके basis पे इन्होंने explain किया. Kumarila and his followers, whose philosophy we shall deal with in the next chapter, hold that negation, abhava, appears as an intuition, manan, with reference to the object negated, where there is no means of ordinary cognition, pramana, leading to prove that the existence, sapta parichedakam, at that thing, of that thing. देखिए हमने अभाव को पहले पढ़ा था कि हमारी जो आइज है एज अ सेंस ऑब्जेक्ट वो हमेशा नेगेशन या अभाव में या फिर आकाश में रहती है, आकाश को परसीव करती है इन अ सेंस कि मैं चीज़ें देख तो पा रहा हूँ लेकिन अगर जैसे मेरे आगे फ़ोन है, लाइट है, मैं फ़ोन के जस्ट पीछे क्या है मैं ये नहीं देख पाऊंगा. वैसे ही अगर आपकी आंखें जैसे किसी लाइट को देख रही हैं, आपकी आंखें लाइट के पीछे के अंधेरे को नहीं देख पाएगी. तो दीपक तले अंधेरा जैसे बोलते हैं ना, दैट इज द केस. इसमें ये बोला गया है कि जब आप अभाव को एक्सप्लेन करेंगे, अभाव मतलब नहीं है, तो इसका मतलब आपकी इंट्यूशन कि पहले क्या यहाँ पे कुछ था जो अब नहीं है, या फिर इन अ सेंस जो एग्जांपल हमने दिया था कि आप वो जीन्स या पैंट या फिर कपड़ा लाओ जिसमें स्ट्रिप्स नहीं है, तो स्ट्रिप्स नहीं है, दैट इज अ नेगेशन. सो हाउ वी आर इमेजिनिंग अ शर्ट विदाउट अ नेगेशन, दैट इज आवर परसेप्शन कि हम परसीव कैसे कर पा रहे हैं चीज़ों को, राइट. In design as well, there has to be a really strong perception as to how you perceive things all around yourself. They hold that the notion it is not existent cannot be due to perception, for there is no contact here with sense and object. It is true indeed that when we turn our eyes, example in the case of perception of the non existence of a jug, to the ground, we see both the ground and the non existence of the jug. When we shut them, we can see neither the jug nor the ground. And therefore, it could be argued that if we call the ground visually perceptible, we could say the same with regard to non existence of the jug. But even then, since in the case of perception of the jug, there is sense contact, which is absent in other cases. Now, we could never say that both are grasped by perception. We see the ground and remember the jug, which is absent. And thus, in the mind rises the notion of non existence, which has no reference at all to visual perception. A man may be sitting in a place where there were no tigers, but he might not be aware of their non existence at that time, since he did not think of them. But when later on he is asked in the evening if there were any tigers at the place where he was sitting in the morning, he then thinks and becomes aware of the non existence of tigers there in the morning, even without perceiving the place and without any operation of memory of the non existence of tigers. There is no question of there being any inference in the rise of our notion of non existence, for it is not preceded by any notion of concomitance of any kind. And neither the ground nor the non perception of the jug could be regarded as reason, ling. For the non possession of the jug is related to the jug and not to the negation of the jug. And no concomitance is known between the non perception of the jug and its non existence. And when the question of concomitance or non perception with non existence is brought in, The same difficulty about the notion of non-existence which was sought to be explained will occur again. आप जैसे कई जगह जाते हैं, आपको पता नहीं है, जैसे मैं अभी के सिचुएशन की बात करूं, सॉरी फॉर दैट। जैसे मैं यहाँ पे नई जगह आया था तो आई डेंट न्यू दैट स्नेक्स वर सो प्रेवलेंट हियर। हाँ, आते जाते कई बार यू गेट स्नेक्स, यू गेट टू सी देम, राइट? तो इट वाज वेरी कॉमन। तो समवन जस्ट आस्क कि आपके घर पे कभी स्नेक तो नहीं आते हैं? एंड आई वाज लाइक व्हाट? तो दे सेड ओके, दे यूजुअली गेट देम, दे जस्ट पास अवे फ्रॉम योर होम, क्योंकि हमने उनकी लैंड में कभी घर बनाया एंड ऑल दैट। तो while I was sitting in my room, I never thought कि स्नेक है कि नहीं है, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है स्नेक यहाँ नहीं आ सकते हैं। बट इन दी एंड व्हेन दीज थिंग्स केम इनटू माय माइंड, व्हेन समवन आस्क्ड, तब मुझे पता लगा अच्छा स्नेक तो नहीं थे। देन वो नेगेशन जो था वो हमारे दिमाग में तब आता है कि हम उस प्लेस में वो चीज़ थी या नहीं थी, वो हम एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, राइट? हाँ। Negation is therefore to be admitted as cognition by a separate and independent process of knowledge. Nyaya, however, says that the perception of non-existence, there is no jug here, in a unitary perception of one whole, just as any perception of positive existence. There is a jug on the ground is both the knowledge of the ground as well as the knowledge of non-existence of the jug arise thereby the same kind of action of the visual organ. And there is therefore no reason why perception of the ground should be said to be due to perception, whereas the knowledge of the negation of the jug on the ground should be said to be due to separate process of knowledge. The non-existence of the jug is taken in the same act as the ground is perceived. The principle that in order to perceive a thing one should have sense contact with it applies to positive existence and not to negation or non-existence. Negation or non-existence can be organized even without any sense contact. Non-existence is not a positive substance, and hence there cannot be any question here to sense contact. It may be argued that if no sense contact is required in apprehending negation, one could as well apprehend negation or non-existence of other places without which are far away from him. To this, the reply is that to apprehend negation, it is necessary that the place where it exists must be perceived. We know a thing and and its quality to be different, and yet the quality can only be taken in association with the thing, and it is so in this case as well. We can apprehend non-existence only through the apprehension of its locus. In the case when non-existence is said to be apprehended later on, it is really no later apprehension of non-existence but the memory of non-existence, example the jug, perceived before along the perception of locus of non-existence, that is ground. Negation and non-existence abhava can thus, according to Nyaya, generate this cognition just as any positive existence can do. Negation is not a mere negative or mere vacuous absence, but is what generates the cognition, is not. As possession bhava is what generates the cognition it is. Right. So negation जो है, negation is not something that you are negating anything. And negation also means that why you are negating, आपको उस वक्त पिछला whatever you have thought, that you are remembering, okay, these were the situations, these were the things whatsoever, right? तो these are the things that come as अभाव and भाव, यानी कि आप जब सोचते हो कि अच्छा वो था क्या, घास हरी थी, हरी थी, यस। अगर घास थोड़ी गीली थी, हाँ गीली थी, क्योंकि वो हमें तब पता है, लेकिन वी जस्ट एक्सेप्टेड एज इट इज, वी डोंट नीड टू नोट दैट पॉइंट्स। तो ये बेसिकली यही कंसेप्ट है कि हम किस पॉइंट को नोट डाउन कर रहे हैं, किस पॉइंट को नोट डाउन नहीं कर रहे हैं, राइट। The Buddhists deny the existence of negation. They hold that when a negation is apprehended, it is apprehended with specific time and space condition. Example, this is not here now, but in spite of such an apprehension, we could never think that negation could thus be associated with them in any relation. There is also no relation between the negation and its pratiyogi, thing negated, etc. Example, a jug is the negation of jug. For when there is a pratiyogi, there is no negation. And when there is a negation, there is no pratiyogi. There is not even the relation of opposite, virodha. For we could have admitted it if the negation of the jug existed before and opposed the jug. For how can the negation of the jug oppose the jug without affecting anything at all? Again, it may be asked whether negation is to be regarded as positive being or becoming, or the nature of not becoming a non-being. If in the first alternative it will be like any other positive existence, and in the second case it will be permanent and eternal, and it cannot be related to this or that particular negation. There are, however, many kinds of non-perception. Swabhavanup, uh, Swabhavanuplabdhi, natural non-perception. There is no judge because none is perceived. Swabhavanuplabdhi, Karnanuplabdhi, a non-perception of cause. There is no smoke here since there is no fire. Right? Karnanuplabdhi. Vyapak nuplabdhi. Non-perception of the species. There is no pine here since there is no tree. Vyapakanaplabdhi. No perception of the species since there is no pine here, since there is no tree. Karyanuplabdhi, non-perception of effect. There is no cause of smoke here, since there is no smoke. Karyanuplabdhi. Swabhava viruddhaplabdhi, perception of contradictory natures. There is no cold touch here because of fire. Swabhava viruppalabdhi, perception of contradiction natures. There is no cold touch here because of fire. These are 11, तो हम इसको एक्सप्लेन करते हैं एक एक करके, क्योंकि ये यूजीसी नेट में आते हैं, राइट। स्वभावनुपलब्धि यानी कि जो स्वभाव है, राइट, जैसा स्वभाव होगा। तो नेचुरल नॉन परसेप्शन के जग नहीं है क्योंकि वो परसीव नहीं किया गया, तो स्वभाव है, हम परसीव नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, राइट। कारणानुपलब्धि, नॉन परसेप्शन ऑफ कॉज। कारना मतलब कॉज से आप पता लगा सकते हैं, राइट। कॉज, देयर इज नो स्मोक हेयर सिंस देयर इज नो फायर, तो कॉज एंड रिलेशन जो हो गया, राइट। व्यापकना उपलब्धि, नॉन परसेप्शन ऑफ द स्पीशीज। देयर इज नो पाइन हियर सिंस देयर इज नो ट्री। व्यापकना उपलब्धि कि हम किसी टाइप पे, हम पहले टाइप्स की बात कर चुके हैं ना, तो अब किस टाइप की बात कर रहे हैं, तो कारण उपलब्धि। Vyapakanuplabdhi, non-perception of the species. There is no pine here since there is no tree. Karyanuplabdhi, non-perception of effect. There are not the cause of smoke here because there is no smoke. There are not the causes of smoke here because since there is no smoke. तो कार्यना उपलब्धि, ये इसमें उल्टा दिया गया है। जो हम कारणानुपलब्धि का है, कार्यना उपलब्धि उसका थोड़ा ऑपोजिट है, कि हम उसमें स्मोक को देख के करें कि उसका कोई कारण नहीं है क्योंकि स्मोक है नहीं, राइट। स्वभाव viruddhapalabdhi, perception of contradictory natures. There is no cold touch here because of fire. स्वभाव विरुद्ध उपलब्धि, स्वभाव विरुद्ध यानी कि अगेंस्ट, तो विरुद्ध में के देर इज नो कोल्ड टच हियर बिकॉज फायर, फायर एंड कोल्ड आर ऑपोजिट, राइट. विरुद्ध कार्य उपलब्धि, परसेप्शन ऑफ कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी इफेक्ट्स. देर इज नो कोल्ड टच हियर बिकॉज ऑफ स्मोक. अब फायर से स्मोक निकलेगा, तो नो कोल्ड टच हियर बिकॉज ऑफ स्मोक, दैट इज विरुद्ध कार्य उपलब्धि. विरुद्ध व्याप्तोपलब्धि, opposite concomitance. Past is not the necessity destructible since it depends on other causes. कार्य viruddhopalabdhi, opposite of opposition of effects. There is not here the causes which can give cold since there is fire. व्यापका विरुद्धोपलब्धि, opposite concomitants. There is no touch of snow here because of fire. व्यापक विरुद्धोपलब्धि, opposite concomitants. There is no touch of snow here because of fire, right. Opposite concomitants. Karana viruddhopalabdhi, opposite causes. There is no shivering through cold here since he is near the fire. Karana viruddhopalabdhi. Karana viruddha karyapalabdhi, effect of opposite causes. This place is not occupied by men of shivering sensation, for it is full of smoke. ये सारा न्याय बिंदु में दिया गया है, राइट. आप इसको अगर कंटिन्यूस देखेंगे, आई थिंक दिस इज आल्सो मेजर क्वेश्चंस दैट वी गेट टू हैव फ्रॉम हिंदू फिलोसफी. हिंदू फिलोसफी मेजरली एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट बन जाता है व्हेन इट कम्स टू यूजीसी नेट, राइट. कितना बड़ा भाई. हाँ, ये आज हम खत्म कर देंगे, पॉलिसीज हम कल करेंगे. There is no doubt in the above ways we speak of negation, but that does not prove that there is no reason for the cognition of negation. All that we can say is this, that there is certain situation that justify the use yogyata of negative appellation, but this situation of yogyata is positive in character. Where what we all speak of an ordinary usage as perception is of the nature of perception of some sort. Perception of negation thus does not prove the existence of negation, but only shows that there is certain positive perception which are only interpreted in that way. It is the positive perception of the ground where the visible jug is absent that leads us to speak of having perceived the negation of the jug. अनुपलभः अभावं व्यवहारति. The Nyaya reply against this is that the perception of positive existence is as much a fact as the perception of negation. And we have no right to say that the former only alone is valid. It is said that the non-perception of jug on the ground is but the perception of ground without the jug. But is this being without the jug identical with the ground of different ground or different? If identical, then it is the same as the ground, and we shall expect to have it even when the jug is there. If different, then the quarrel is only over the name. For whatever you may call it, it is admitted to be a distinct category. If some difference is noted between the ground with the jug and the ground without it, then call it ground without the jugness and or negation of jug. It does not matter much for a distinct category, as anyhow we admitted. Negation is apprehended by perception as much as any positive existent is. The nature of the object of perception only are different, just as even in the perception of positive sense objects there are such diversities as color, taste, etc. The relation of the negation with the space and time with which it appears associated is the relation that subsists between the qualified and the quality, Vishesha Visheshana. The relation between the negation and its pratiyogi is one of the opposition, in the sense that there is one that the one is the other is not. The Visheshika Sutra seems to take abhava in a similar way as Kumarila, the minimalist, does. Though the commentators have tried to explain it away. The Vaisheshika, the four kinds of negation are enumerated. ये हमने जो पहले पढ़े थे काइंड्स ऑफ नॉन परसेप्शन, जो हम परसीव नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, अब हमें वैशेषिका के अकॉर्डिंग फोर काइंड्स ऑफ नेगेशन जो अभाव से एंड होगा. प्रज्ञ भाव, pragya bhava, the negation preceding the production of an object, example the jug before it is made by the potter. Dhvamsa bhava, the negation following the destruction of an object, as of the jug after it is destroyed by the stroke of stick. Dhvamsa bhava. Pragya bhava ये था कि the negation of preceding the production of project, that is the jug before it is made by the potter. ध्वंस भाव जब बन जाता है उसके बाद एक स्टिक से तोड़ दे, that is destroyed. Anyonya bhava, mutual negation, that is in the cow there is negation of a horse, and in the horse that of the cow. Atyanta bhava, a negation which always exists. Even when there is jug here, its negation in other place is not destroyed. जब जग यहाँ पे है तो वहाँ पे नहीं है. That is atyanta bhava. Necessities of acquirement of debating devices for the seeker of salvation, fallacies and all, doctrine of soul and salvation. Okay, so I think थोड़ा सा ही रह गया है. ये हम कल ख़त्म करें, कल फ्राइडे है, तो कल ख़त्म करके सैटरडे वी कैन स्टार्ट द मीमांसा, और कल से ही स्टार्ट कर देंगे. बट इसको हम थोड़ा और डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे क्योंकि इसमें बहुत सारे अलग वर्ड्स हैं. आज का लाइव छोटा ही रखते हैं गाइस, मेरा भी ऐसे ही है. तो आई स्टार्ट बाय नेसेसिटी ऑफ एक्वायरिंग ऑफ डिबेटिंग डिवाइसेस, कि डिबेट क्यों ज़रूरी होगा, पॉलिसीज़ क्या हैं एंड ऑल दैट. आप सारे अपना ख्याल रखें एंड बस यही कहूँगा. जय श्री राम.